In the early 20th century, receiving a diagnosis of diabetes meant preparing for the worst. Patients endured wasting bodies, relentless thirst, and inevitable death. Physicians, they could only prescribe starvation diets, extreme calorie restrictions that delayed death by a few months at best. But in 1922, in a hospital room in Toronto, Canada, a desperate boy and an experimental injection changed medical history forever. Imagine a stark hospital ward where the air is cold and the scent of antiseptic lingers. On one bed lies Leonard Thompson, a 14-year-old boy whose gaunt frame barely moves. He weighs just 65 pounds, his body ravaged by type 1 diabetes. Doctors have done all they can, and his father paces the hallways praying for a miracle. That miracle, it came in the form of a cloudy solution in a glass syringe. It was insulin, extracted from the pancreas of a cow, and it had never been successfully used in humans. The doctors knew the risks. If it failed, Leonard would almost certainly die. But if it worked, it would rewrite medical science. The story of insulin begins in 1920. Frederick Banting, a struggling Canadian surgeon, had recently closed his failing practice. While preparing a lecture on diabetes, he came across an intriguing medical paper. It suggested that the pancreas contains something, still undefined, that regulated blood sugar. This substance, he theorized, could be the key to treating diabetes. Banting scribbled down a simple but revolutionary idea. Ligate pancreatic ducts of dogs, wait 6 to 8 weeks, extract residue to relieve glycosuria. He took his idea to John MacLeod, a prominent professor at the University of Toronto, and John reluctantly agreed to let Banting use his lab and a handful of diabetic dogs. Banting partnered with Charles Best, a 22-year-old medical student, and the two began months of painstaking experiments. Their work was grueling, involving complex surgeries on dogs to induce diabetes and extract pancreatic tissue. The first results, they were inconsistent. Sometimes the dogs recovered temporarily, but the extracts were crude and unreliable. And then entered James Collip, a skilled biochemist. Collip refined the process, creating a purer form of insulin that could be safely tested in humans. By late 1921, the team believed that they were ready. But even with their success in dogs, human trials, that's an uncharted territory. In January of 1922, Leonard Thompson was on the brink of death. He became the first person to receive an injection of insulin. The first dose caused severe allergic reaction. It was too impure. James Collip returned to the lab and worked relentlessly, purifying the extract further. And on January 23rd, Leonard was given a second shot. This time, the results were remarkable. His blood sugar plummeted, his symptoms began to subside, and within days, his strength returned. Leonard Thompson became the first human saved by insulin. But insulin, it wasn't just a scientific triumph. It was a logistical and ethical challenge. As news of the discovery spread, pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly began mass production. However, distributing insulin globally was no small feat. By 1923, Banting and MacLeod received the Nobel Prize. But the recognition sparked controversy. Banting insisted that Charles Best deserved equal credit, and he shared his prize money with him. So, how exactly does insulin work? Insulin is a hormone that helps cells absorb glucose from the blood, providing energy or storing it for later use. Without insulin, glucose builds up in the bloodstream, starving cells while damaging organs and tissues. By injecting insulin, balance is then restored, allowing people with diabetes to live full and active lives. Yet even today, insulin remains both a miracle and a challenge. While millions of lives have been saved, the rising cost of insulin has sparked outrage worldwide. Many patients in developing countries still lack access to this life-saving medication, turning what was once a medical breakthrough into a global issue. When you think of diabetes today, remember Leonard Thompson, whose courage and determination in 1922 paved the way for hope. And remember Banting, Best, Collip, and McLeod, scientists who relentlessly gave their effort and gave the world a second chance against a devastating disease. These are Interesting Things with JC.